Mandala, toward a sense of center. This is part 1. The theoretical histories and philosophies of the universal symbol of the mandala. Mandala means sacred circle or essential circle, originally a two-dimensional drawing or design around a specific center, used in spiritual reflection in the East. Sometimes composed of more than just circles, mandalas have been drawn and used as symbols in India for thousands of years. Sri Aurobindo wrote that every act is a symbol and a sign, and every symbol hides a living power. Art forms of many different geometries can have profound philosophical or spiritual meanings and are used in personal rituals. Circle dance of Krishna here, popular Hindu god. Buddhism, too, adopted the mandala. This is on a wall in a palace in Ladakh, in the Himalayas. Often a religious mandala is more abstract, just using sacred words. This is from a Chinese Buddhist temple in Taiwan. The Christian world, too, has used mandalic forms for expressing the divinity and teachings of Jesus Christ. This is the ceiling of a monastery in Bulgaria. The most famous religious circles in Western Europe are the stained glass windows in Gothic cathedrals. This is a rose window from Chartres Cathedral in France, with Mother Mary and baby Jesus in the center. Psychiatrist Carl Jung studied mandalas and felt them to be archetypal in our psyche. They are, he said, magic circles symbolic of the nuclear axiom of the human psyche, whose essence we do not know. Joseph Campbell, scholar of cultures and myths, understood that when we create a personal mandala, it is a reflection of inner values, with a center figure representing our aspect of the self. Mandala can apply nowadays to the whole beautiful Earth, as seen recently from space. Our lives can be seen as deeply involved with mandalas of many kinds as symbols. Our sun, center of our solar system. Our sun eclipsed by our moon. The circles and their center may be separate and distinct, but we can't have one without the other. They do imply each other. Our sun is eclipsed by our earth, seen from the moon, mandalas all. In the whole creation, the mother said, the earth has a place of distinction, because unlike any other planet, it is evolutionary, with a psychic entity at its center. Our moon and stars. And a distant galaxy, 5 million light years away. All sacred circles in a way, each with a center. And mandala can refer to the smallest microcosm as well, from the mightiest of processes and heavenly bodies down to the smallest of particles, all very physical realities. The tiny hydrogen atom has only a single electron circling around a single proton, its center. This lithium atom has 3 electrons spinning around and a more complex center. Very complex atoms have many electrons swirling about a nucleus in ever-changing orbs of energy. The molecule H2O, water, assumes a mandalic form when it's very cold. And it goes into its free-fall form. It drops as a circle, a sphere of potential life. More complex molecules became the building blocks of life itself. A stem in cross-section here reveals its center, called the pith, where life juices flow, and all around its circumference, its protective epidermis. And roots, too, partake of the same centering principle for life energies to move back and forth. Each of us was created as a mandala, from our mother's egg and our father's sperm, united. A tiny ovum, enlarged 2,000 times. Cells dividing outward around a center. Cells dividing again and again, becoming more complex. A whole organism with a vibrant center of stem cells. Mandala can also be seen as just space or ground, surrounding a center, a conceptual reality. The poet said that space itself is divine. Spirit, he wrote, made of space a marvel house of God. Mandala is an entire world around a single person. His world, her world, our world. Around a center, an entire world around a single person. Our world past, present, and future. Around a single person as an image in our psyche. So, from this different point of view, the mandala can be seen as a portal between the very largest and the very smallest of things and processes in our universe, a transparent symbol of connection. A door or gateway, or many gateways, between that which is far within us in a way, and that which is far without. The poet wrote of the gates of God, of the transcendence bliss, and the gate of the divine ecstasy. So first, far within, we could say, are the tiniest particles and the simplest of atoms, hydrogen and helium, turning and churning in the centers of blazing suns. Then life and all of nature emerged from trillions and trillions of very complex atoms and molecules. Finally there evolved a beautiful multitude of forms, the seeds of our existence really, evolved, emerged, from the simplest to the most complex. A celebration of matter and life and culture and spirit in all its forms, the entire world symbolized. Creation leaped straight from the hands of God, the poet wrote. Marvel and rapture wandered in the ways. Only to be was a supreme delight. Life was a happy laughter of the soul, and joy was king. All of creation, another beginning, on a new inner level of harmony and more subtle. Life, more subtle, life. And second, far without, farthest away from us are the galaxies, over 100 billion of them, including our own, blazing with light. Huge conglomerations of stars, gas, dust, and mysterious dark matter and dark energy. This Andromeda galaxy is similar to our Milky Way galaxy, and somewhat a close neighbor of ours. Nonetheless, its light takes 2 million years to get to us. Other galaxies are up to 3 billion light years away. An artist did this view of our Milky Way. From our galaxy's point of view, our sun is like an atom. The little orange cross in a circle, left of center, is where our sun is. And our Earth is like a particle or electron rotating around the sun. Here, a telescope looks toward the center of our galaxy. Since we're in it, part of it, we cannot see it fully. All are sacred circles in a way, and very far without. Inconceivable, really. Everywhere we can see a mandala of beauty, even in the idea of the Big Bang, theoretically, at the beginning of creation. The whole drama of the universe is repeated in ourselves, as the Oriental scholar Giuseppe Tucci observed, repeated symbolically in many ways. Mandala we recognize out in the universe as well as in atoms, molecules, and cells. We are the center point in understanding both the immense and the minute, the portal. A paradox of sorts, and inherent in nature, theoretical but very real. So we easily project ourselves, our understanding and our consciousness, both far within and far without. Our world is of us. The creator of things, the poet mused, sleeps in the atom and the burning star. He sleeps in man and God and beast and stone. Because he is there, the inconscient does its work. He is the center of the circle of God. He is the circumference of nature's run. Now let's look at human history for a moment or so. Since we as humanity were the center of existence, so the earth was seen as the center of the world, of the universe. In the 2nd century, the Roman astronomer Ptolemy saw earth and water in the center of a holy conceptual mandala. Then comes air, fire, moon, Mercury, Venus, the sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and finally the firmament of stars. Ptolemy wrote, "I know that I am mortal, and the creature of a day. But when I search out the massed wheeling circles of the stars, my feet no longer touch the earth, but, side by side with Zeus himself, I take my fill of ambrosia, the food of the gods." In the 9th century, a Greek monk did a manuscript that he called Christian Topography, with his painting of a cosmic mountain as the center of the world. Oceans flow around it, and God is in heaven above. Hildegard of Bingen in Germany was a nun, a mystic, head of a religious order in the 1100s. This is her cultivation of the cosmic tree as a mandala symbolizing the center of the world. "I saw how moisture from the gentle layer of air flowed over the earth," she said, "and caused all fruits to put forth seed and become fertile." So Ptolemy's system remained the standard up through the 1400s in Europe, when the Italian Giovanni di Paolo drew the universe with earth in the center and God outside creating everything. This is a wall fresco by him. Here's Di Paolo's system. After the earth in the center, there's the moon, lunar, Mercury, Venus, the sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, with the 12 signs of the heavenly zodiac as the circumference of the mandala. It's Greek cosmology with a Christian spin, in a way. In the Hebrew Testament, God was the geometer of all. When he established the heavens, he set up a compass upon the face of the deep, as it says in Scripture. God did his geometry to create the earth and heavenly bodies, as sketched in medieval times in Europe. Geometry was seen as very, very sacred then. So God, in a very human form here, oversaw the earth as center of the world, with the sun and heavenly bodies revolving around it. A very human and earth-centered religious belief. In depicting details of the Hebrew creation story, artists adopted a very earth and people-centered account within a circle. Venice, Italy, St. Mark's. The first 6 days that God created are in the center. The earth was still flat, they believed, but the creation was a Christian mandala. Christ as God is in the center here, the Spanish tapestry. The earth-centered universe of Ptolemy and of creation held sway in Western thinking for almost 2,000 years. The mother had a clear idea of the earth as a metaphorical center. For us, she said, the history of the universe made the earth a symbolic representation of the entire universe. Earth as symbol. The poet wrote that Earth's wordless hymn to the ineffable arose from the silent heart of the cosmic void. Finally, a brand new concept of the sun being at the center was just published in 1543 by the Polish astronomer Nikolai Copernicus, just before he died. He looked outside the box, or the sphere in this case. Galileo, of course, later accepted it too. Soul is at the center, the sun, as he stated, with Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, etc., as we know today. Copernicus wrote, "In the middle of all sits the sun enthroned. In this most beautiful temple Could we place this luminary in any better position from which he can illuminate the whole at once? The moon revolved around the earth around the sun, but the stars were still seen as fixed, not moving. Now let's project our minds outward, somewhere between the tiny atom and the enormous universe. Scientists now believe that the origins of our solar home, our solar system, came from swirling gases and dust around a center. An artist's view here, of course. The mandala has just one constant, a center, from which it seems to emerge. Center is universal, the beginning. The rest all seems to vary. All patterns and processes of matter and life, as known by us today, began something like this 5 billion years ago. Even that idea beyond form which we call time, and planets began to form, and the sun to shine from the center. This was the joy of creation out of nothingness, as the poet wrote. He even envisioned a creator as saying, "I curved the vacant ether into space, a huge expanding and contracting breath. I harbored the fires of the universe. I struck out the supreme original spark and spread its sparse ranked armies through the inane." I manufactured the stars from the occult radiances, marshaled the platoons of the invisible dance. I formed Earth's beauty out of atom and gas, and built from chemic plasm the living man. Even the Chinese, ancient Chinese in the 1100s, had painted a flaming sun in the center of a planisphere. The fixed stars are in the constellations around it: Aquarius, Libra, Leo, etc. With the sun at the center, an early U.S. astronaut, Buzz Aldrin, sketched his concept of the orbits of an interplanetary shuttle called the Mars Cycler. The light blue circles are different positions of the Earth during the year. The orange circles would be orbits of Mars, a space mandala of interplanetary travel of sorts. Now let's compare his vision with a wall fresco in Bhutan, kingdom in the Himalayas, painted by a Buddhist monk hundreds of years earlier. Circles in circuit around the center. Another old meditational microcosm. What a beautiful play of circles. Also in Bhutan, a temple courtyard of a fortress. And another one from Tibet. The stupendous cycle of the solar system, both interplanetary and meditational visions of overlapping orbits. The Italian poet Dante in the 1300s visualized a cosmic rose of many divine angels around the sun. Even the angels cannot fly into the center. Dante and his spiritual partner Beatrice behold his vision of the cosmic rose together. It's a circumference of infinite angels, the center, the mandala. Hildegard of Bingen was one of the first to envision, draw, and paint angels surrounding the earth. All beings celebrate creation, she called this. Each circle she saw as crowns of heavenly spirits shining with great brightness. She also had the vision of a universal egg. The Holy Spirit, she said, was the mighty way in which everything that is in the heavens, on the earth, and under the earth is penetrated with connectedness, with relatedness. Her egg here is surrounded by flames, meaning God is burning everywhere. In the center is air surrounded by water, which gives moisture to the entire egg. In the central globe, a mountain divides darkness from light. In the early medieval Christian mind, Adam and Eve stand within an egg-shaped earth surrounded by water, a very symbolic map of the world. A French zodiac man here, early 1400s, takes an egg form as well, surrounded by the 12 astrological signs of the heavens. Aries, Pisces, Taurus, etc. In other cultures, too, the universe has been seen as an egg, a potent, fruitful symbol of becoming. The original unity, a stone-shaped lingam, a symbol of fertility from ancient India. The golden egg, or golden womb, is more abstract. It includes within itself the totality of manifested being. All later developments are contained within it in a germinal form. It contains past, present, and future. Hinduism's creator god, Brahma, was born from this egg, a fertilized one here, divided into regions and currents of energy, all symbolic analogies. The philosophical egg from the early 1600s. As a union of two opposites, both male and female, the conscious and the unconscious are drawn along with signs of the heavenly bodies. It's a hermaphrodite in triumph over a dragon and a winged globe of chaos. This is European alchemy. Not idealistic at all is our universe of 100 billion plus galaxies, shown by astronomers in an oval shape. The spheres of the heavens as a scientific egg, a sacred oval of the immensity of it all. Night was impossible to such radiant heavens, the poet wrote. Firm in the bosom of immensity, spiritual breaths were seen, sublimely born, from a still beauty of creative joy. Heaven's touch fulfills, but cancels not our earth, he said. The Dogon tribe of Africa's Sahara Desert saw the cosmos as an egg, with symbols of sun and stars and water and women. The egg of the world, they say, but it's just a drawing in the sand. The Dogon call this oval the great placenta from which all has emerged. In the early 1500s, Leonardo da Vinci had sketched embryo in the womb, a sacred mandala form of early life. And a more modern Hindu portrayal of a baby in the womb, with elements of earth and symbols of sky. Egg, oval, baby within the womb, within a circle. So it's not just dumb energy and matter, but conscious being, luminous spirit, and joy in the radiant universe, that is, Sat Chit Ananda, Hindu spiritual counterpoints to the usual rational mind of science. More down to earth and abstract in a different kind of way is cyberspace. From a recent Science News report of the world's internet connections, these are digital global networks shown here. It's like a Medusa jellyfish in a way, with a dense core surrounded by a highly connected body, as if with dangling tentacles all around, a cyber mandala. Compare with Leonardo da Vinci's mystic knot without end from the 1500s, the continuity of connections, a cycle of ages and interweavings. And a connectiveness mandala of imaginary lines of latitude and longitude around the Earth. Very rational. We can imagine these longitude lines slowly turning throughout the day and night, rotating toward the east. This rotation makes the stars seem to move throughout the night sky, with a certain star almost straight above our North Pole, so it's called the North Star. The wheeling circles of the stars, as the Greek Ptolemy had mused, feeling so close to the great god Zeus. Over several hours the stars appear as arcs of the grand mandala of the night in my time-lapse photo here. It's another paradox. It's not the stars that move much, it's the Earth. It's us. The constellations of stars, astrology, astronomy, meeting. From very ancient times, people saw animals in various forms in the sky, and star charts drawn as mandalas became very commonplace. Sagittarius, Orion, Scorpio, and so on, from the late 1500s. In the early 1700s, even Christian saints were painted as the major constellations in this Dutch celestial atlas. Calendars, too, have been mandalas of circular time. This is a Chinese farmer's almanac to tell them when to plant, when to harvest, according to the stars, moon, and sun. Actually, the very earliest mandala calendar was done way back in 5100 before the Common Era by the Chinese. Here's the Jewish moon and sun, or luni-solar calendar. The months are reckoned by the moon and the year by the sun, and so the two had to be harmonized in this mandalic sort of way. The Tibetans used their Tanka form of hanging scroll to display the signs and symbols of the universe as mandalas, including 9 magic squares and signs of the 8 planets. Even the Aztecs of Mexico used a calendar wheel to show the symbols of their 20 days per month. That's 260 days, 13 months within a year. As seen from the Earth, the many phases of the moon form a wonderful mandalic pattern, from new to full, and all in between, seeming opposites. Opposites of light and dark because of the sun. Full moon, new moon, waxing, waning, dualities in a way. A function of its slow circling around the Earth every 29.53 Earth days. An astronomical mandala of the moon. A potent mandala from India, called the Sri Yantra, is used in meditations which deal with opposites. It's an intersecting triangle system. The Sri Yantra bridges dualities in many complementary ways. Its symbolic ascending and descending triangles symbolize aspiration, rising from below, and grace, coming from above, paired opposites in a way. Sir John Woodruff said that no other symbol adequately enshrines and expounds the twin and related processes of evolution and involution. The yantra the poet saw as a kind of engine. All is there, he wrote, even God's opposites. This is the knot that ties together the stars, he wrote. The two who are one are the secret of all power. The two who are one are the might and right in things. And the ancient Chinese saw opposites as united in a yin-yang design, a twofold quality. Yin means water, light, softness, receptivity, intuition, the soul. Yang was dryness, dark, hardness, action, intellect, the spirit. Here philosophers discuss a silk yin-yang scroll. It's a harmony of contraries, usually shown as a circle, a mandala. The Chinese sage, Lao Tzu, said, "Going on means going far. Going far means returning. Going, coming, a circle." And life and death, seeming opposites too, but both make up the whole of existence. Creative complementarity, everything and nothing. The poet wrote of the cycle of becoming and of non-becoming. Female energy, male energy, good forces, evil forces, and all things seemingly opposed, but united as a circular mandala of meditation, Tibetan in this case. Duality, combined. Carl Jung wrote, "This center is not felt or thought of as the ego, but as the self. Although the center is represented by an innermost point, it is surrounded by a periphery containing everything that belongs to the self, that is, the paired opposites that make up the total personality." This totality comprises consciousness, first of all, then the personal unconscious, and finally an indefinitely large segment of the collective unconscious, whose archetypes are common to all mankind, as Jung wrote. Mandala as self. My cells, my molecules, my atoms, my intimate uniqueness, as well as my anonymous oneness with all. All contraries were true in one huge spirit, wrote the poet. surpassing measure, change, and circumstance. The secret law of each thing is fulfilled, he said. All contraries heal their long dissonance. There meet and clasp the eternal opposites. There pain becomes a violent, fiery joy. Evil turns back to its original good, and sorrow lies upon the breasts of bliss. So, like in the atom, so in our brains and psyches, so in the planets and the sun, moon, and so in the stars, similarities above and below, macrocosmic, microcosmic. The ancient philosopher Plato said, "The low things are found in the high things, although in another state." This intriguing duality came down in time in the saying, "As above, so below," the divine everywhere. The Italian Marsilio Ficino in the late 1400s saw the entire universe, or the macrocosmos, as a divine animal, animated by a cosmic mind connected to God, and a cosmic soul, which is connected to matter down below, as the microcosmos. Circles traditionally represented these ideas. An uninterrupted current of supernatural energy, he wrote, flows from above to below and reverts from below to above, thus forming a spiritual circuit. Perhaps it's something like a Sri Yantra effect. We must see life, Ficino said, in the smallest particles of the world as well as in the heavens of the world. The whole in which we live and move and have our being is itself alive. As above, so below. A famous sketch by Leonardo da Vinci, late 1400s. Man the microcosm superimposed over the macrocosm. Standing in the shape of a cross gives a square. Standing as an X gives a circle. He saw his picture chart of the human body as a cosmography of the microcosm. He believed the workings of the human body were an analogy for the workings of the universe. So, for Leonardo, the great cosmos was a circle, and the material earth was a square. Man, or woman in this modern view, is of both. Both dualities are suffused with divinity, a union of the spiritual circle and the material square in Leonardo's mind. Both the cosmos and humankind are emanations or overflowings of the divine substance. The Lebanese poet Khalil Gibran said, "All that is in the creation exists in you, and all that exists in you is in the creation." Man as microcosm has a lower soul connected to matter, and a higher soul connected to the divine as macrocosm. In an ancient Upanishad, the Rishi called out, "Realize in us the microcosm, thy form of macrocosm. Make me know again." The mandala represents not a middle ground, but a portal between the two. The squaring of the circle Carl Jung wrote and painted as here. Many archetypal motifs which form the basic patterns of our dreams and fantasies, that is one of the most important of them. Indeed, it could even be called the archetype of wholeness, the squaring of the circle. The philosopher Blaise Pascal, mid-1600s, wanted to paint for us, he said, to paint for us not only the visible universe, but all the imaginable immensity of nature within the confines of an atom. Let us see an infinity of universes in which each has its own firmament, planets, earth, in the same proportion as the visible world. We naturally believe that we are more capable of arriving at the center of things, Pascal said, rather than embracing their circumference. Nature is an infinite sphere in which the center is everywhere. The circumference is nowhere. It is, Pascal mused, the greatest sensible mark of God's omnipotence that our imagination loses itself in that thought. The poet William Blake challenged us with his mandalic vision of the macro and microcosm, as he said, to see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. The poet Sri Aurobindo knew well this marvelous duality of consciousness when he wrote of the legendary Savitri. All nature's happenings were events in her. The heartbeats of the cosmos were her own. All beings thought and felt and moved in her. She inhabited the vastness of the world. Its distances were her nature's boundaries, its closenesses her own life's intimacies. Distances, closenesses, nature's boundaries, life's intimacies. Mandala. We can continue now, if wished, with Mandala toward a sense of center, Part 2. We'll explore some different personal arcs of world mandalas. We'll see them in relation to light, the sun and the eye, in relation to illumination and the spirit, and in relation to consciousness, the center point of now.